Salam sejahtera, vanakkam and tajahau. Welcome to the Green Dialogues podcast, brought to you by the Kalsom Fellowship, where we aim to expand the reach of the Kalsom movement, empowering Malaysia's youth since 1994. I'm Aisha, your host for the series. Today, we're diving into a conversation that couldn't be more urgent and relevant: sustainability. But instead of going at it in the usual direction. Today, we're going into a relatively more interesting and niche topic around the theme. Today's topic is sustainability in research. Now, what exactly does sustainability in research mean? We will be answering that question with the help of our guest today. Hello, guest speaker. Nice to meet you. Do you mind introducing yourself? Maybe a little bit about what you do.
Hi, Aisha. So I am Ben Gray, and I am the founder of Sustainable Steps, which is here to help make labs sustainable one practical step at a time. So my mission and my goal is to help make research as green, as energy efficient, and as sustainable as possible. And that is through educational resources, and through conversations like we're having today.
That's so nice. All right. So that really sounds interesting, but we gotta go through a few more questions first before we go deeper into that. So for our listeners today, they might be wondering about the bigger picture. So I'd love to ask you this question. Why do you think it's important to have this conversation about sustainable research?
So I think we all know about sustainability as a whole is becoming a more and more important topic. And this strands from global warming to the population of fish in our oceans and across a lot of things, unfortunately, these days. And I think we all know that there are some things in our lives that we can do to help improve sustainability. So if you think about being at home, you think about reducing your heating need, you might think about reducing your plastic use or how much water you use in your house as well. And I was always very passionate about this. And then I thought about the lab that I worked in. So I work in a chemistry lab, but lots of these principles work across chemistry, physics, engineering, across any science lab you can think of. And the problem becomes a lot bigger. So a lab will usually use 3 to 5 times more energy than your typical office space, which just to start with is a huge thing. So you can think the percentage energy changes you can make in a lab will make a bigger change than what you could make in an office space. And there's similar numbers in terms of plastic as well. So the whole scientific community, which doesn't make up, huge numbers across the population, uses 2% of global plastic consumption just in the science that we do. So there's a lot of plastic waste, there's a lot of energy waste, and also finally water. So each litre of deionized water that you might use in a lab, so the nice filtered water, so each time you prepare 1 litre of that, you're actually consuming 3 to 5 litres. So they're just three highlighted areas where you can see labs consume a lot of energy, a lot of plastic, and a lot of water. So that's why labs are a great place to look at as to how we can be more sustainable.
For sure. Thank you for putting that into perspective because when I heard about sustainable research, I was like, I'm not really sure where to start or where to look at. So that was really helpful. All right. So I think this really opens up this conversation in a thoughtful way, and it helps us look at the journey to sustainable research as not just a hypothetical ideal, but something that is actually achievable, such as
Mm.
your company. So, given that, we should deal with the barriers to achieve it. What makes it so hard to avoid these problems, actually?
So there's a lot of reasons, and this plastic waste, this energy waste, and this water waste isn't created for the fun of it at all. Like, this isn't that somebody decided, oh, wouldn't it be great if we use more energy than we need, or we use more plastic or more anything that we need. They've all become because it has been seen in the past that there's a need for these in science. And really, what we're trying to do, especially at Sustainable Steps, is challenge some of those current ways of thinking. So energy is a great one to start with. So I don't know if the listeners and yourself are familiar with fume cupboards. So very normal in a chemistry lab. So what these are used for is if you're dealing with hazardous experiments, you handle your experiment in the fume cupboard and it takes the vapors away for you and keeps you safe. Super, super important piece of technology that we all need because this allows us to do important research, and nothing about sustainable steps is about stopping or halting research. It's about how we can do that important work in a more sustainable way. So each one of those fume cupboards, and this is a big stat, so each one of those uses the equivalent energy of 3.5 homes in the UK. So if you think about it, each day, just one of those things is taking as much as 3.5 homes. And lots of the labs you'll see in research have about 20, 30, 40, 50 of these in one lab. So you can just imagine an entire neighborhood of houses just from fume hoods alone. Now, as I said, these fume hoods are super important to use, but there are some really easy things we can do to improve the efficiency of these units so that they consume less than the 3.5 homes worth of energy. The simplest of these is to close the sash. So there's this safety barrier that sits in front of the fume hood that you can close and open as and when you're using it. Just by closing this sash, you are saving 30% of the energy that's being used if it's a variable air volume unit. So you can think, even without doing anything at all, just by closing, almost like closing a door when you leave or enter a room, by closing this sash, you're instantly saving an entire house for a day. So there's some really easy things we can all do to make research and science that bit more sustainable.
That is so interesting. I feel like that's the equivalent to, save water by just like squeezing it really tight. But yeah, but well, I have personally not heard much of the internet speaking of like being eco-friendly or environmentally friendly at the point of research. In
Mm,
fact, discourse around sustainability revolves around the end stage of consumerism, where the final product of research is out for public
mm.
use. For example, I'm thinking medicinal drugs or beauty products. So why do you think this issue has been overlooked in research spaces or in general discourse?
I think it's because the fundamentals of research, we need to make sure that all the scientists are acting safely. So we spoke about the fume hoods already. That's there for safety, and safety is the number one importance in any lab. And it's also about quality. They're the two most important things, that the scientists and the products that are in science and healthcare, they are safe and they're of good quality as well. So these two are non-negotiables really in any lab space that we have. And I think that extra little bit of sustainability is only a conversation that started in the last 10 years or so that I've really seen. You see conversations about plastic bottles for water, and we engage with this on quite a daily basis. A lot of the savings in labs are those which you don't even see. The energy use, you never see the energy bills, they never come to you. The water waste, you never really see it. You use your water and the rest is dealt with. And in terms of plastic waste, we do see it and we get a feel of it, but because we know that the importance of safety and quality is there first, I think that extra little detail of, is this the best thing we can do for the environment as well, has often been put to the side. But certainly in the UK now, I'm seeing a lot of energy around all labs in research are starting to think about this. And that includes the funding bodies are starting to be interested. And so if you ask for money to do your research, they're often quite interested to know what are you doing for sustainability in your lab now. So it's definitely a growing space, but it's certainly when I started off in the lab, it wasn't something that was considered for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good to know. I think for the general public, it might be something out of sight, out of mind.
Mm.
Hence why this podcast is really important. All right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're gonna take a short break from me asking the questions. A few weeks ago, we posted a question box on our Instagram story and collected some questions for you from the audience. We picked out one for you. The question goes, quote, do you think it has its place, it being sustainability? Do you think sustainability has its place in terms of profitability for big firms to focus on? End quote. So I think the user is asking, do you think sustainability and profitability can coexist within big firms?
It's a fantastic question. Really, really good question. Because I think, especially in research, a lot of people think that sustainability means spending more money as well, which is, and there are some premium products out there that do help sustainability. So I really understand the crux of this question. What I would say is a lot of the savings we can make in terms of resources actually help gain money, then lose it. So if you think about it, every pound of energy that you can save is money being saved. Every piece of plastic that is not being bought. So if we're thinking of reducing the amount of plastic that we use in our labs, that's less money being spent again. And if you think of water waste, the less water that we're paying for again, the more money we can make. So there's certainly a big place in sustainability for making cost savings just due to the simple actions we take in the lab. But there's also some really good examples when buying something sustainably has long-term cost savings as well. So this could include buying an energy efficient drying cabinet. So you'll see in a lot of labs, so you do your washing up, so you'll have lots of glassware, lots of pipettes. They'll all go into the washer and then they come out and we like to keep them warm so that they dry quicker. Now, lots of the labs that I've seen have quite old, inefficient units in the lab, which leak out heat and they consume a lot of energy. Now, if you were to purchase a brand new energy efficient system, you can even calculate in how many years or how many months in some cases will I be able to make the money back through the energy that I'm saving. So and these numbers are not true, but you can imagine that if you were spending £2,000 on a new energy efficient drying cabinet, but you're saving £500 worth of energy every month, you'll make your money back within 4 months. And after that, you're making more money from the savings that you're making. So there is a lot to be said for acting sustainably and making more profit as well. And most of that is seen in cost saving, but also in terms of the products that some researchers end up making as well. Sustainability is becoming a really important selling point, I think, for a lot of consumers now. So when there is an option to buy sustainable item or a non-sustainable item, if if you can afford, I think a lot of people like to buy that sustainable option because they see the grand picture of what's going on and want to contribute. So yeah, it's a very important balance to be struck and a really, really great question.
For sure. I think it's kind of a blind spot within general discourse, the fact that, you don't really need to invest a lot in being
Mm.
sustainable.
Absolutely. And there's so many things you can do at no cost to you at all. So the fume hood example is one of them. There's lots of ULT, so ultra low temperature freezers that take place in our research labs as well for a lot of medical research. Now, for these, a lot of these are set at minus 80 degrees. And historically, they never used to be. They used to be set at minus 70. But new technology came available and everyone moved to minus 80 because it felt a bit safer and a bit better. However, I've seen loads of studies now from the University of Columbia, and there's some great resources out there that prove that minus 70 is actually no less concerning than minus 80. So there's a great option there to, without costing anything, move from a minus 80 freezer to a minus 70 30% savings again, switching off a third of a house in that case with no cost at all. So there's a lot that can be done.
For sure, for sure. All right. The next question from the audience is, what can institutions like yours do about this issue?
Very good question. Very good. So I used to work at Imperial College. So whilst I was there, I was the Sustainable Initiatives Coordinator. So now Sustainable Steps doesn't sit within an institution, but supports other institutions. So I think the best thing that institutions can do, any university, any college, is to have a sustainability plan and a report. So this can include a target for net zero. So a lot of universities out there have a target of 2040. Some are a bit earlier, some are a bit later. And this is specific to the UK, these examples. And that really helps to drive change across the research. So, and if you think about it, sustainability across an entire institution doesn't just include the research, but it also includes the catering, it includes the buildings, it includes things like biodiversity, it includes a far wide range of topics. But having that overall support of an institution helps anybody in the lab, anybody in research to say, look, the work I'm doing to act more sustainable is aligned to the overall approach of the university or institution. So having that backbone really, really does help anybody to support that. If you're in a position where you can't affect how the whole university does things, I would point towards what your lab can do and the savings that you can make. There are so many small actionable steps that you can take as a lab, as an individual in the lab, and bringing your lab together as a team. So even if that there isn't that support from a whole institution level, I'd really suggest in your lab starting a green team, getting a few people together to talk about, look, what can we do? Where can we start? There's resources from Sustainable Steps to help you get started as well. So if you don't know whether to start tackling with energy or with plastic or water or something else, there's loads of resources out there to help you on your way. So yeah, I think it's really good to just get started. But of course, if your whole institution supports, it makes it a lot easier.
I see. So essentially, you're a sustainable labs consultancy firm,
Yes,
right?
more education at this point.
Mm.
So yes, I help to educate anybody who wants to get involved with sustainable labs to either take the first few steps as to making that sort of process, or someone who's been thinking about sustainability in their lab for a few months or a few years to help elevate the level that they're performing at as well. So yeah, I certainly do act as a consultant and an educator to those in labs to act more sustainably.
That's wonderful. Right. So far, I've seen that you are a really strong advocate for this cause. So I'm guessing that you may have been inspired by the institutions that you've worked in before. So as far as the ones that you have worked in, what are some initiatives that they themselves have implemented to promote or support sustainable research?
Sure. So in the UK, but this is something I'm seeing grow worldwide as well, there are some frameworks to help you act sustainably in your lab. So there's a set of criteria of things you can do, and you get assessed against these, and then you can end up with a certificate. So there's a couple of big ones, but there's three actually in the UK now. So LEAF, which is the Lab Efficiency Assessment Framework. This allows you to have a bronze, silver, or gold award. So there's a list of criteria. You have to do them all to get. There's a few to get bronze. There's an additional few to get silver, and an additional few to get gold. So that's a really nice way of quantifying how well you have done. A second one is My Green Lab, which is a worldwide organization, and they So they can support a lot of the industry labs as well as those in academia. And in a similar case, so they have bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and green is their top level. And again, they suggest a load of actions you can take. You can put out a survey to your team to see how well you're doing, and then you get one of these certificates. So those frameworks are a really good way to get involved and to quantify how well you are doing. The other thing I saw that we launched at Imperial that was really successful was to have a sustainable labs fund. So what this was we had a pot of money where people could send in suggestions of, I would like to spend this money on one of these energy efficient drying cabinets, or maybe something to help wash your plastic consumables to make them reusable, or potentially for education purposes as well. And then we met as a panel and in a committee to discuss how that money would be spent and where it would be shared. And then those successful candidates were able to purchase those pieces of equipment or education or services and see the benefits from it. So that was a really great initiative for us to have at Imperial, one that you could directly measure the impact as well. And as we said, you don't need money to act sustainably, but there are cases where it can help for sure.
For sure, for sure. Money does help you do many things. Yeah. So I have a question. What does this certificate help with? Like, do they compare between institutions, like which one is ranked
Hmm.
higher than like, oh, how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So one of the big things, and I mentioned briefly in our conversation earlier, is that funding bodies are now asking for these certifications. So I believe Cancer Research UK and Wellcome Trust, which are two big funders for research within the UK and some of them globally as well, they are now requiring a set level of certificates. Now, I can't remember the exact criteria for each of them, but one was asking for a bronze level and another for a silver level. So it really makes it so important now to have that level of certification, because without it, you won't be able to fund the research that we all love and want to do. So that is a really big reason as to have it. Another one is to really help broadcast within your group the fantastic work you've done. So it's one thing to say, oh, we've made these changes and hasn't it been great? We've saved this much money, we've saved this much carbon. But to have a certificate alongside it, which you can celebrate, it's something tangible, it's a goal you can aim for, really helps, I think, with that accountability and motivational part of working as a team to achieve a goal. So those two things combined are certainly a very good reason to get a sustainability certification for sure.
Definitely, I see it now. All right. Now, I'd like to readjust the spotlight from the bigger picture to your personal opinion. So, what is your vision of a truly sustainable research culture? And has that changed as you transitioned from a company employee, an institution employee, to a founder?
I think that community is a massive part of this. Now, as an educator, I'm obviously going to say that as somebody who wants to engage a community and bring people together. But this is something I would say I saw both from me as a founder of Sustainable Steps and me working in a company and an institution as well. Because at first, when I tried to make sustainability happen in my lab, I did it by myself. And I got some things done and it was positive and it was good. But then I connected with some other labs in my organization and we met on a frequent basis and it made it so much more enjoyable. We had accountability for one another and it helped us to drive change as well. And the amount that we learned from one another was so important as well. So I don't think there's any one person that knows absolutely everything about sustainability in research, because we all research such different things. Some are focused on analytical chemistry, other on incredible medical breakthroughs. And in each of those settings, the lab's going to be slightly different. So, although I will be able to comment and share information that is applicable to the majority of labs, there's always going to be information specific to your own lab of things that you can do. And you never know who that might help and what impact that could have wider. So, the one thing I would say is any research lab who's engaged with sustainability should absolutely share what they've done, what they've achieved, and how they've done it. Because by sharing that information, we can really make the impact go 3, 4, 5, 10 times higher than just the one lab itself. So, community is a massive part of sustainability. Absolutely.
For sure. All right. Do you have like a 5 to 10 year ideal, maybe? Like, what do you think? This sounds really preschool. What do you think labs would look like, sustainable wise
Mm.
in maybe 10 years' time?
Great question. So, the energy side of things feels super easy, to be honest. I think there's a lot of information that just needs to be shared, and people will be able to implement that with a bit of support, absolutely. So I see energy in terms of a lab becoming net zero with relative ease. And the reason I see that is because I think our energy infrastructure is getting better as well. So we're having more renewable energy, more green tariffs be available. So from an energy side, there's a lot of work, but I think that every lab building can get to a point of net zero in that 10 years that you say. Plastic waste is a bit harder. So it's something labs do depend on day to day at this point. And, I get a lot of people ask me, is net zero possible for science? And I absolutely say yes. I absolutely say yes, because I'm a believer and I have a lot of trust in our scientific community that we will achieve that. Now, there are some challenges in terms of plastic waste. So there's a lot of work I do in helping people reduce the amount of plastic they use. But to get to zero has been a challenge that I've been struggling to manage as well. And I think a lot of this will be seeing what innovations come out in the next few years, in the next few months. And the science community is great in innovating. So they'll see an opportunity and they'll want to grab it. So I would encourage that anybody who sees an opportunity to try something new in terms of sustainability, give it a go, experiment, give it a try and see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, you've learned something, and if it goes great, you've made a breakthrough. So that's my vision, I would say. I think we can all get to net zero energy with some simple steps, and we can get there. We can take a lot of simple steps to reduce plastic waste. To completely eradicate, we'll need to support each other, and we're dependent on some people making some brilliant innovations as well.
Sure. I love how optimistic you are. We're gonna quote you on that. Ben Gray says net zero is possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a big
That's
believer.
all right. Okay, this is our final question. What do you think listeners can do to help achieve this ideal, this 10-year ideal?
Good question. Good question. I think the message from me is clear, is to take a first step. So wherever a listener goes, whatever lab setting they might work in, even if it's not in a lab, if it's research but it's centered elsewhere, or even if you're just working in the office, to take that first tiny step to start thinking about sustainability in that area will be far more impactful than you think. It's not about climbing Everest. It's not about getting to that net zero. It's about starting the trek up. So the one thing I tell every single lab to do first of all is to start a conversation, to start a green team, to start talking about what can we do to start educating people. And from there, although that action in itself doesn't help net zero, a conversation makes little impact, but what that conversation will lead you to is incredible. It will lead you to talking about what can we do about our plastic? What can we do about our energy? What can we do to make the lab a more efficient place, not just from energy and sustainability, but from time and everything else? So I would really suggest everyone listening, whatever industry you go in, have a conversation. Be the leader of the change you want to have, because if not you, then who? So that would be my leaving message for sure.
Thank you so much. I mean, I totally agree. Like having conversations would definitely delete any unhelpful presumptions that you have on the topic, right? Right.
Exactly, exactly. And we all learn. We all learn, which is the best
Yeah,
place to be.
truly. All right. Thank you, Ben, for sharing your vision with us. It's given us a lot to think about, from the large and theoretical, net zero, to the small and literal. So that is all for today's episode of Green Dialogues. Kalsom Fellows would like to give a huge thank you to Ben for sharing his insights and for reminding us that sustainability is not just about big policies and recycling, it's also about the minuscule and scrutinizing the everyday. We'll see you again in our next episode. Terima kasih, Nandri, sia-sia for tuning in. Bye-bye.